great introduction.
Okay, should we move on to Ellen?
Yes.
Please.
You have to say something first, though.
I would like to say something about Ellen Kushner, if I may just take a moment. Actually, I find it quite hard to talk around Ellen after just talking for 10 minutes right now, because she exudes such extraordinary excitement about whatever it is you're talking about. A person who actually, like me, who has no trouble talking, actually sometimes is stunned into silence. She's one of the most engaging speakers, writers, so fantastic, and mourners, and social mourners that I've ever known. She's also very costume savvy, and traverses very easily and elegantly our hieroglyphical world. She is the author of many books, including one of my one of my favorite books, which is Thomas Rhymer, which I believe you'll be doing something from tomorrow. Her writing, particularly in that book, I'm biased on that book, I have to say, is so incredibly gorgeous and human. If you've not read this story, you really must. In a world that is now wonderfully becoming quite full of excellent adaptations from fairy tale and folklore, Ellen manages to invest that story, which is scant. All we really have is a ballad, really, from that story, with such an extraordinary humanity. I really can't recommend that book highly enough. She is also like the A-list person to have at a dinner party, which is, I think, the best compliment I can give anyone.
I eat a lot.
No. So that is Ellen Kushner. What have I not had? Like a million things, really.
No, it's fine. I love
Playwright?
Yeah, I do a lot of stuff. It's all in the program book, in my bio. And I'm really pleased to be here at FaerieCon because I was so passionate about fairies when I was a little kid and kind of lost my fairies when I became an adult. Not in a bad way. I just fell in love with lots of other fantastical things and kind of lost fairies. But then and I still, part of me thinks like, what am I doing here? I read about, bisexual tormented swordsmen. I don't do fairies at all. But Thomas the Rhymer, what happened was that I had written one novel, Swords Point, and then my roommate at the time, when we were both getting over hideous heartbreaks and, both needed a place to live in New York City in the late 80s, was Terry Windling. And I had just finished Swords Point, and she was just starting the Border Town series. And I have some exciting news about that, by the way, for people later. So, I know it's like she was getting all her cool friends to write these stories about elves and motorcycles and cities. And I said, well, would you want me to write one? And she looked at me and said, well, would you want to? I said, yeah. So I became one of the Border Town writers. And my exciting news is that, and if you don't know these books, I mean, they were like mushrooms. They appeared in the night and vanished, or like Jonah's vine. They appeared in the night and vanished in the night. And yet, extraordinary numbers of people keep coming up to me and saying that they changed their lives and they really loved them. So armed with that knowledge and the fact that some of those people are now some of the hottest urban fantasy writers today, I thought, damn, let's either get these books back in print or get these young urban fantasy writers to write their own Border Town stories. So we did. And Holly Black and I have just finished co-editing a new Border Town anthology of entirely original stories called Welcome to Border Town. And some poems by people including Neil Gaiman and Delia Sherman and Pat McKillop and like that. But the stories are half by the old Border Town writers and half by the new people. So I'm really pleased and proud to be able to actually tell everybody this for the first time, that the book is now in as of Thursday. And it'll be coming out from Random House as a young adult hardcover in the late spring, I forget the exact date, of this coming year. So that was my first time writing about elves, and shortly after that, Terry started a series of fantasy novels based on ballads, on folk ballads. And I remember saying to her over breakfast, if you give Thomas the Rhymer to anybody else, I'm gonna kill you. And she said, oh my God, I already did. And I said, well, can you get it back? So she did. She got it back from the person because he hadn't started writing it yet, and he could do another ballad. And because Thomas was very iconic to me, and it was like I was pushed into writing this story. I'm gonna stand up so people can see me. I was pushed into writing this story that I had thought I would wait until I was like old and wise to write, but suddenly it was upon me. I had loved ballads and been really passionate about traditional ballads and folklore since I was a teenager. and had all these albums, and my friends and I would find all these things in books that you actually had to purchase in those days. There were these things called books, the only way to get information, so we did. And so I set to work with a will and took all my passion and all my knowledge of this material and just poured it into this book. And it took me like 5 years to write Swords Point and about 5 months to write Thomas, which sounds cool, except that then I did a lot of revision. But still, it was just this labor of love and this labor of passion, and this way for me, who was then, living in New York City and living this kind of difficult and very urban life at a time when New York was a fairly dangerous place, which was cool because we were young. But it's not the New York you know today. And just go back to Elfland. And so I did, and put a lot of myself into that and really loved writing it and loved the way that it still means something to people. And Thomas, the rhymer, is the artist who goes to the source of art and pays for it and gains from it. So I always think of him as kind of the authors, or the writers and musicians' King Arthur, that he's our great hero. And so getting to just by happenstance be the first person who could write about that was a complete accident, and sometimes a gift I feel I don't deserve. So I'm always very pleased when people say they like the book.